So first, what is SoFi? SoFi was launched as a lending program at Stanford. And Stanford is an important place to get some money to go to school because it costs about $53,000 a year to go to Stanford. As they focused on, obviously, smart kids who go to Stanford, they started rolling out other products over the years. So 2012, they can now refinance other loans. 2014, they start launching mortgages. So now these students that have left Stanford are looking for their first home after they've gotten a job. They begin doing personal loans for automobiles. They do loans now for all sorts of non-secure assets. And now they start launching more and more programs to refinance for medical students. So they've been really focused on, hey, these are high net worth or high income individuals, and how can we help them and specifically target them with things that they're not getting elsewhere. So most recently in 2019, they launched SoFi Money to do your banking essentially, and SoFi Invest, which is, think of it like a Robinhood for people that already are in the SoFi network. In January 2020, they're up to 1 million members. So obviously it's grown quite a bit out of just this small cohort of Stanford. But the important part about why I think in focusing on a small segment matters is if you think about Facebook starting at Harvard, where it's just shared on Harvard campuses, and then it moves to more schools in the Ivy League, and then it moves to more colleges, and then eventually it moves out to everybody, and then it's picked up across all age groups, and now it's spread across the entire world. So now let's talk some about what is the opportunity here. So Chamath Palihapitiya has put together a SPAC, which you can think of as a blank check way to go out and buy companies and merge them and bring them out as an IPO essentially. And he's put out a great summary. I'll link to it in the show notes, but essentially his thesis is legacy technology is holding banks back and will continue to hold banks back. There were some problems in 2008, and those have really kind of hamstrung some of the banks going forward to focus on some restrictive practices and not really be diligent about gaining. And if you look out at revenue growth for the biggest 10 banks in the US, they've been essentially flat. He's not wrong. There's been a real stagnation of growing. Their share price has gone up, and that's probably largely or in part driven by share buybacks. But if you look at their actual growth, it hasn't been going anywhere over the last 10 years. Now, if you converse that, there's been an incredible amount of money dumped in, more than $500 million since 2010 to create new banks. So what does that mean? The way I think of it is these are financial companies that are intended to disrupt these big banks. They're intended to spark innovation and move things forward. So in the consumer space, for instance, that might be Robinhood when it comes to investing. You saw Robinhood come in and now really take a large share of investing mindset just by creating a really amazing product that was transparent and low or no fees, and that provided more ancillary services on top of that now, like a cash savings account and all sorts of other ancillary offerings that will come. But there has to be a core value proposition that wasn't met by the Vanguards and the Fidelities of the world. In the same way, the banking industry has some room to go to say, hey, how can we put these services together? How can we reach new customers? He's got some more in here. I don't really like this, like, okay, SoFi has a best-in-class solutions and there's got 4.8 stars on the App Store. I don't really see why that's relevant. The top 10 banks all have millions of users and reviews, and they're all 4.8 stars or higher. That being said, they are growing at an incredible rate. So if you look at 1.8 million unique members in 2020, and they're expected to grow to 3 million in 2021. So that's great. There's a lot of runway to go. They've started with a segment that they know is really dependable and reliable, and they want to make it really great for just that segment, which I really like. They also have acquired a company in the past year called Galileo that operates as a infrastructure for other companies, a competitor to SoFi called Chime, and Robinhood, which I just talked about for investing, both run off of some of the core banking infrastructure that Galileo provides, which is, I think, a good analogy to the way AWS is run as a business-to-business sale, even though Amazon Web Store is run off of AWS as well. So they get some of that core learning, and they get to really turn a cost center, which is running the banking infrastructure, into a profit center, because now they've got customers on the business side who would like to outsource that as well. And here it says, I think in a different tweet, Chamath had mentioned that 90% of the new accounts that were created in the US in 2020 were run off of Galileo. So a large clip of them were probably in Robinhood. And a lot of the smaller neobanks are also included. Chime are enabled by this infrastructure. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're in some way an account for SoFi or anything like that. It's more like SoFi is the one handling all of the infrastructure under the covers. Okay, next let's go through the thought behind why bundling makes sense for SoFi. So we already talked about how they started off as lending money to students, as basically an alumni or lending club. And what the thought here is as you get to bundle and not just do lending, but also banking and investing, and what happens is you have this virtuous flywheel that says, oh, I can bring a customer in and have them be best in class for investing, and then they'll also be interested in personal loans. And I'm not just going to exercise all those profits. I'm going to plow them back into the business and get into the credit card business, and then into the home loan business, and be able to take efficiencies of scale for all of these businesses combined and virtuously improve each one of them. So no one can compete essentially on the rates for investing, or the rates for a credit card or a home loan, or the very attractive rates all the way through the business, much like Walmart became the bundler of all products and became very price sensitive for the retailers that were pushing their wares through Walmart. SoFi wants to do that for money. One example of how there will be more innovation than maybe you're used to in the banking industry is, imagine you want to deposit a check and it's a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, and you open your mail and you use your app to upload the check, and then they say, oh yeah, great, we will get that deposited, and probably be Monday morning before you actually see the money in your account. Now think about that. Why does that need to happen? If essentially the back end of any business can apply the deposit to your account whenever you get the check and whenever they process it, and if there's not a human, why is there a 2-day delay until the bank opens for it to actually hit your account? These will be the kinds of things that will be hard to imagine right now, but seem obvious after you start using a new bank that is really innovating year over year, month over month. Another example that I like to use is, let's say you've got a subscription to somewhere that is, you've set up an account with them, and you've told them, no, I'm going to cancel my account and I don't want to be a member anymore. And you're paying your $30 a month, let's say, and one day you decide, no, I've given you enough notice, I am no longer paying you, but they still try and charge you. The bank should be working for you as a consumer, and you should be able to say, no, I don't want to pay this subscription anymore. Don't pay this out when it comes up again. It's my account. I'm revoking my permission. That will be a way that the bank works for you and not for anyone else. All in all, SoFi looks like an interesting business. I'm going to be digging into it more and deciding if it's the right investment for me. Let's take a look at some portfolio updates. Okay, here's the update since we last talked. You can see I'm still invested in ARKG, RK, Tesla, and the mid-cap index fund, and all of them have appreciated except for the mid-cap on the last day. We're up to 169. Here's the little graph over time showing the investment that had started in the first quarter of last year and the ride we've taken since then.
GameStop is one of the most compelling asymmetric opportunities in the market today. Really, I don't understand how you could disagree with that. That's why it's the top position in my portfolio and also Dr. Mike Berry's portfolio. But based on prevailing sentiment, the market, and popular culture, many think it's a foolish investment. But everyone's wrong!
What you're seeing here is Roaring Kitty, a fellow YouTube creator, and I'll link to him in the show notes as well. What he did this past 6 months was predict the short squeeze for GameStop, which essentially is a brick and mortar store that sells games for PlayStations, Xbox Online computers, and has been steadily declining over the last 5 years. And what he did was take a look at the fundamentals of the company. What's the book value of it? What is the share value trading at? And predict that, hey, people have overreacted. There's going to be enough orders coming up with the release of new platforms like Xbox and PlayStation 5 to keep this company healthy or at least afloat, and that short sellers are way overzealous in trying to short sell this position. So he loaded up on call options and went from, I think, about $75,000 last year to $11 million as of last week. So an insane gain, and all credit to him because he did the homework. He really researched the company, and along the way, some catalysts happened that made him, particularly lucky. One being Wall Street Bets picked up the thread, and he's a member of that community as well, and sort of led the charge to do a short squeeze. But other people came on board too, like Ryan Cohen from Chewy and Michael Burry. I know Wall Street Bets gets a real slam in the press and gets a real negative for people YOLOing their life savings. But here's an example of somebody that put out their own research. Just an average person out there doing their own analysis, and look where it took him. So kudos to Roaring Kitty. Okay, I just want to say thank you for tuning in this week. Please let me know if you're interested in investing in GameStop and why, or if you are looking at IPOE or any other SPACs for that matter. And I'd love to catch up with you in the comments. Take care.